Hey, my name's James Nicholson. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I want to talk about a lender, in fact, two lenders that are doing something to help landlords at the moment. One of them is relaxing stress tests. That's going to mean easier access to finance, better affordability, and that's going to help some landlords that are stuck at the moment, because there's some landlords that bought properties with very low interest rates, and now the interest rates have tripled, quadrupled. It can be really hard to get a refinance for them at the moment. And you've also got people that bought that just don't have much equity in the property. So if they get a down valuation, that's a crisis for them then, because then they've got to consider selling the property or topping up the deposit, which isn't ideal either. So in this video, I'm going to talk about two lenders that are doing two different strategies to make things easier for landlords. Now, this will be useful for you if you're a tenant to know what's going on in the market, and if you're a landlord, so you can understand what options you've got should you get in a sticky situation. Now, before we jump into this, if you're new around here and you haven't done before, do subscribe to the channel over there and hit the bell notification. We are so close to 50,000 subscribers. Have a look around here. We need like 150 odd subscribers now. That's how close we are. We can do that this week easily. And by subscribing, you'll get all the latest house price news, interest rate news, property investing tips, and much, much more. So, what's going on? Well, since the inflation crisis that we've had, where inflation was over 10%, some of you are saying this week that inflation is still over 10% for certain people, depending on what you buy, right? And so the inflation crisis caused interest rates to go up at a rapid rate. Now, a lot of people that don't understand the buy-to-let industry will say, well, look, these rates aren't high, 5-6%. That's what we've had historically for decades. But the problem is, when you buy on a buy-to-let property, you're buying with what we call interest only. 90% of buyers are. Now, some are buying with cash. They don't have these problems. But not everyone can afford that. And so a lot of people are buying with what we call an interest-only mortgage. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that you were paying a 2% interest rate, which a lot of people were. I've got rates that are 1 point something still at the moment. I've got another year of those. But let's just say you were paying 2%, and then suddenly what happened was the rate went to 4%. Well, if you're interest only, that meant that your payment doubled. So if you're paying £200, you're now paying £400. But what happens if you needed to refinance during the mini budget when rates went up to 6.5%? Let's just say you found a great deal for 6%. Well, now your payments have tripled from £200 to £600. At £200, the deal might have worked really well. You might have £500 in rent coming in. You got £300 in profit there to fix any issues, pay your tax, and do everything. When you're paying £600 and your rent's £500, that doesn't really work. And that's one reason why rents rose significantly. The other is that landlords are leaving. So it's a supply and demand issue as well. Now, what also is a consideration here and is a problem for landlords is quite often at the moment, you get down valuations. And I've had my fair share of those in the last year. Crazy, some of them. I had one lender that valued a property at 100 grand and another that valued it at 200 grand. Now, the 100 grand valuation was based off the fact that that lender probably didn't want that deal. And so they're just down valuing and saying, look, if you want it at this value, we'll take it. But I've got a deal in Hastings as well, where I'm fortunate that I've only got 40% borrowing on that, where some of the lenders are now being really fussy, and there's a pub that's 100 metres away, and they're saying, we don't want to lend near a pub. For 20 years that I've owned it, it hasn't been a problem. So I've got to go to different lenders, and they're being a little bit more fussy on the valuation. Now, if I was leveraged highly on that property, it could be a real problem, but fortunately I'm not. But that is a consideration. Down valuations are a problem. And so what you'd also have to do if you've got a massive down valuation is do a top up of your deposit. Now, you might not be able to do that. that's not an option for everybody. But let's just say, for argument's sake, you were downvalued and your property was at 100 grand, and you might now have to, like, for argument's sake, maybe top up your deposit by 25 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand. It depends. The lender will only lend you 75% maximum with most lenders loan to value. So if they downvalue it, even if the house price hasn't gone down, that's a problem. And that is something that lots of landlords are facing. Now, another consideration, that even if you get the right valuation, you've got good rent coming in, stress tests aren't great. So let's just say they'll lend you at 4%. They'll say, hey, perfect, we'll lend you at 4%. Great. Now you've got a stress test on there that says, well, we'll lend you at 4%, but this deal has got to stack up if the rate shot up to 6%. That's not uncommon in the stress test. And so you could fail that deal just because of that. And in that scenario, you might have to top up the deposit again. You might have to get the rent up higher, which you might have a ceiling on that rent, or you just can't go with that lender. And that's a crisis at the moment. So 2 lenders have come up with some better options for that. One of them is called Redwood Mortgages. And so Redwood Mortgages have this week reduced their stress test. So if you're a landlord and you struggled with the stress test part of things, this could be an option for you. And the government is pushing this for residential mortgages. And they're saying, don't be as strict on the stress tests. A lot of lenders were saying, look, you've got to pass at 6%. And now they've cut that down to 4% or 5%, depending on the lender. And so Redwood are saying, we are making our stress tests easier for landlords to pass, because we know there's a lot of landlords that they're going to get increased rent, and likelihood is that rates will go down when they refinance rather than up. And so we're happy to reduce the stress test. That's good. So Redwood is an option. Another is a company called Dudley Building Society. And so how Dudley are helping is not that they're reducing the stress tests, but in fact they're increasing the loan to value. So these guys will give you 80% loan to value, which is really, really helpful. And so that means that if you've got a 100 grand property, you can borrow 80. That works really well. But previously with other lenders, if you've got a 100 grand property, you could only borrow 75. So that would be a safer option if you're looking at your property thinking, there's a good chance I'm going to get downvalued here because someone up the road sold stupidly low. But even if the others sold high, that's now a problem for me. So to be safe, Dudley could be an option. And so what they're saying is, look, we will give you more money, but we're only going by our valuation and giving you 80% of that. Now, if you've got the valuation that you want, another benefit of this is maybe you've got a cracking deal that you're looking at right now thinking, here's someone that's got a distressed property that I can add some value to that property, but I need some funds to get that. Maybe Dudley could be an option to release some funds and put them into your new deal in order to go ahead with that, because there are some really good deals in the market, regardless of the market being slow, because there are certain people that just want or need to sell their properties at the moment. So that's 2 options that I've got for you here that aren't going to be the best rates, but they could be options for you, because some landlords can't go to the big lenders at the moment because they haven't got enough equity created in that property. The rent's maybe not high enough. There's various different scenarios out there. And so right now, they just need a mortgage that gets them through until the rates drop in a few years' time. Let me know what you think about this, or if there's any other lenders that we should be looking at here. Redwood is one, Dudley is 2. And before you go, if you haven't done, a lot of people have been downloading this yesterday. Crazy amount of downloads. I think a couple of hundred. And that's our Mortgage Secrets ebook. How to get the best deal in 2025 and beyond. This will teach you how to find the best broker, when you should be looking for them, when you should start your mortgage process on a purchase or on a remortgage. And I'll give you a list of market lenders. I'm talking ones that aren't on the comparison sites, ones that aren't with your broker, because those are important to check out as well. They will make a big difference. If you've got a car, I'm sure you've seen Direct Line. You know they're not on the comparison sites. You should always check them. You should always check these mortgage lenders in here. It's in the description. It's in the first comment. Do also check out all the other content as well. We've got a big update on the renters' rights bill coming today. I'm just dissecting all of that, and I'll have that in a video for you later today. So that's a reason to subscribe so you know when that's out. Check out all the other content as well on the channel, including this video right here.